Hello and welcome to Sustainably Talking Live. Today we are joined by Marla Lisa. Have I said that correctly, Marla? I should have rehearsed that with you in
Marla's
advance.
fine, but Marla Lise. Yeah, thanks.
So Marla and Rennie are experts on the rainforest. Well, welcome to Sustainably Talking Live. So we've got Marla and Rennie on the show today, and I thought we would quickly introduce both our speakers. Rennie, let's introduce you first. Rennie Smith has been on the ESG show 3 times, I think. A former corporate banker of 16 years, now bridging neuroscience, reforestation and regenerative ESG models to rebuild ecosystems and reconnect business with nature. And you also have a project, Restore the Legacy. Rennie, can you tell us just a wee bit more about yourself and tell us a little bit about Restore the Legacy?
Yes, of course. Well, thank you for having me, first of all. And it's funny because indeed, last time I was here, I was still a banker, but now I'm not anymore. I resigned from the 1st of April to completely immerse myself in the world of the ecosystems and nature and rainforests. So yeah, banking background, totally passionate about ecosystems and at the same time the human behavior surrounding that, because why do strategies fail? That's always human behavior. So I'm immersing myself in the world of neuroscience to bridge the business side of things with regulation and also with the ecosystems. I think that quite sums it up.
All right, and can you tell us a little bit about Restore the Legacy?
Yeah, Restore Legacy is a non-profit foundation where we restore and protect rainforests in Indonesia by giving it back the value that it was actually originally always meant to have.
Okay, thank you. And Marla, so Marla is an environmental educator, a sustainability storyteller, an impact consultant, helping organisations translate purpose-driven work into meaningful narrative and community engagement. So Marla, please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so same, thank you so
Marla,
much,
I think
Michael,
you're on
for
mute.
putting it together. I'm not. Am I on mute?
That's better.
You hear me?
No, you're back on mute again.
Now I'm muted? No, okay. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
All
Sorry,
right, okay.
yeah.
Marla, I'll give you, well, just chat to Rennie for a couple of minutes and you try and suss it out. You might want to disconnect and come back in again or something like that. So I'll just chat to Rennie for a couple of minutes and I'll call you back
I don't
in.
know
As soon
how
as
to
I see
get
you
out of
back on the
here.
screen, I'll call you back on again. All right?
I don't know how to get out of here.
Hope you heard me. Okay.
How do
So
I
Rennie,
leave?
you spent a big part of your childhood in the rainforest. Pray, spill the beans. What was it like?
It's fascinating, I think, mostly. I think we talked about this before on one of the shows that you don't realize that when you're young, like it's just the way it is. But yeah, I think at a later stage in my life, I started to really appreciate having, I think, the privilege on living in the Western world as well as being raised in Asian countries where everything is surrounded by nature.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's do another sound check with Marla. Marla? Marla? Marla's completely vanished now.
I can't hear you, Michael, so I have no idea what you're saying.
You can't hear me.
I'm in the room.
Marla, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear Michael. Renee, can you hear me?
Right, okay. We can hear you now, Marla. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about yourself. Marla, can you tell us a little bit about
Yes.
yourself?
Can you hear me now, though?
Yes,
At
we can hear
least.
you fine.
Okay, great. I forgot what I was going to say because now I'm totally flustered. But hi, everyone, and thanks, Michael, for having us on the show. It's really nice to be here. And yeah, so I started off as an animal and environmental scientist. I think we've lost Renee. And then got into the sustainability world in 2023. And then in 2023, I also started my own company called the Eco Chapter, where I'm really looking at how we can use words and language to look at behavior and perception and then change systems thinking through that. So I became an English teacher in 2017, and since then, I was like, okay, my world of science and conservation is such a small bubble. And when I got into language teaching, it was really like, okay, nobody else knows these words, this vocabulary, and this language. So in 2023, after my sustainability job, it was really like, okay, how can I bridge those gaps between me as a native English speaker with a science degree, where I have access to so much information, and so many other people that just don't have that access. So the Eco Chapter kind of looks at language and words and how we can shift behaviors and shift perceptions of what's going on around us through education, so talks, content creation, um, yeah, working with schools, universities, corporations, individuals, lots of things. Yeah.
Okay, now tragically, when both of you were in the rainforest, I don't think either of you learnt sign language, which is a real shame because with the problems we've had with sound, it would have been very useful this morning. But can we just check? Can we all hear each other now? Can you hear me? Can you hear us, Rennie? Can you hear us, Marla?
I can say my name.
Yes.
Good, and hopefully you can hear me as well. Right, okay. Marla, tell us a little bit about your working experience in the rainforest. So that just enlighten me a little bit.
Yeah, so after my master's in Singapore, I did my master's in environmental science, but of course, like you can imagine, it was very much textbook based, and I just really, really wanted to get out into nature. And so I bought a one-way ticket to Brazil. Had no idea what I was doing and had no idea where I was going. Didn't even realize they spoke Portuguese. I just left. And so I ended up working in Brazil, in Bolivia, in Peru, and Ecuador, and a lot of like wildlife rehabilitation centers and rescue centers and research centers. And it was really amazing. Like I just couldn't believe like how much biodiversity was there. I just couldn't believe that we were living there in the jungles in the Amazon, and like yeah, we have so many stories of like we do camera trapping, so we had to go like climb all these trails, 3 or 4 hours, maybe longer, into the jungles to change your SD cards or to like change the batteries for the camera traps. And then you realize like when you come back to base camp and it's like you're checking the SD cards and there's a jaguar that's just walking through this thing, and we're like, oh my god, we were literally sitting in the den of a jaguar, so it's so incredible. But the sad thing was, like in a lot of the wildlife rescue places that I was in, that a lot of these animals are victims of the illegal wildlife trade. They're sold as pets. They're taken. And they're sent to centers like this because their parents are killed for their pelts, whether like cats or the monkeys are taken and put into zoos or as pets. And so a lot of these animals just really don't have a chance because if they're not taken care of as a baby, it's very difficult for them to continue being back into the wild. And so they kind of get stuck in centers like these with us. So it was like a lot of amazing things, but at the same time, it was quite sad, in the rescue centers. So
Yeah,
yeah.
of course. I mean, sharing a den with a jaguar must have been an experience. Maybe you were a tad scared when you discovered that, I'm guessing. Just a tad. And for you, Rennie, when you were telling me the other day about your childhood, I just suddenly saw you as Mowgli from Jungle Book. Okay, so Rennie, you have often told me about there's a difference between an Eastern and a Western mindset. Can you just expand a little bit upon that? And I don't think I think you go further than that. It's not a difference between not merely a difference between the mindset. There's a difference in the brain. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Yes, it indeed. It's not about mindset. It's literally about the wiring of the brain. So we can see that when a person is brought up in an intact ecosystem, that could be a rainforest, could be a normal forest, could even be a desert, but it should be an intact ecosystem, that the brain wiring is more in its biological existence. So it's actually how the human brain should be wired. While if we compare that to a Western brain, we can see that it is less developed and it has weaker connections to the actual biology. For example, how we notice that in our daily lives is that in the Western world, we can see it as a threat when someone is walking their dog at 1 o'clock at night. We found that weird and it feels like a threat to us. But even though if you look at it from a biological perspective, that's not a threat at all. Like a threat would be a predator hunting you. Then you should like figure out what to do. You either freeze, you run. Like I don't hope you freeze because it will kill you. But so we kind of unlearned our brain from a very early age. It's born in a Western country. It's probably from birth already. We don't know that for sure, but that's a big probability that the cortisol level is that high that these systems just shut down. So you don't know what threat or what your biological response actually is and the wiring for that.
Okay, I've been told that my voice is very weak. Is this better or worse?
Better.
Better. Okay. Okay, that's really interesting, Rennie. So Marla, you're in Sri Lanka at the moment, but I think you come from Singapore. Is that right? Is that your home place? Maybe Singapore, being rather a large city, isn't a great example, but I think you have sort of a first-hand understanding of this difference. Can you expand upon that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, like as you said, Singapore is not a great example because we all grew up in Western world TV, and like even my accent is like definitely not Asian. But I guess like if you look at the Asian cultures, a lot of them are very, very family based, very, very much based on also religion. And there's so many different religions here in the Eastern world. And a lot of those kinds of ways of thinking are very much community. So compared to a very colonial, individualistic kind of Western world, which I guess Singapore kind of got, affected by. So yeah, it's for sure. Like it's definitely a difference in terms of how people talk to each other. Your values also lie with like what you've been brought up with, and depending on how much Western TV you were allowed to watch, like I guess that would have also changed the way that you're thinking about things. But a lot of the like Eastern cultures and religions, like Buddhism and Confucianism, are very much around the community and the collective as a whole, rather than you as an individual.
Okay, all right. And also, you were telling me, Marla, how there's this thing that people think 7 generations ahead. Can you expand upon that?
Yeah, so this is like from indigenous wisdom. I'm not sure if it's in Asia so much, but I know it's from a Native American tribe for sure. And they talk about the 7th generation principle, as in like we should be planning our futures in order to take care of people who will be born in 7 generations ahead of us. And there's also another saying that is like we should be planting the trees of the shade that we will never sit under. And this is a way to kind of make sure that all your plans, and whether it's a corporate or individual or family, you're planning for a future that you are not going to see. Whereas now, I guess because of capitalism and consumerism and the isms that exist predominantly, we plan for ourselves for tomorrow, and everybody's just taking care of yourself. Everybody's just taking care of this bubble that I'm in. And as long as I'm fine, I don't really care about anybody else, whether they're with me now or haven't been born yet. And I think it's quite a sad way of being, because ultimately we're all taking care of this planet together, or living in this planet together, and we should be taking care of this planet together. And looking at the state of the planet as it is, it definitely did not take care of it for 7 generations to come. I think we should start doing that.
Okay, and I like what you just said about we plant the shade. Just remind me what you said. We plant the shade that we will not see. Is that what you said?
We will never sit under.
We will never sit under. I like that. I like that. I remember I did ancient history when I was at school, and the Romans would lay down a bottle of wine for their great grandchildren. They knew that they wouldn't drink it, but someone might drink it 100, 150 years later, which I think is an art that we've lost somewhat, I think. Okay, now you've also talked to me about the importance of oxytocin, endorphins, and serotonin in underpinning this sort of different mindset. Can you expand upon that, please?
Yeah, so a lot of my work at the Eco chapter is really around storytelling. It's like how can we move away from the science, because that was kind of my world, and then move into the language side of things. So I'm trying to move away from this head space into a heart space, and then I'm like, how do I connect with people on a heart level where they can see like, hey, we should be doing all these things. Yes, maybe it doesn't make sense to me as a person in my head to plan for 7 generations down the line. But heart space is like, yes, because we're all community and collective, and we should be doing this for the greater good of the whole planet and everybody that's in it. And so I'm sure like everybody remembers stories from your childhood. Like for me, Jungle Book was definitely one of my favorites because my cat was just Mowgli. I mean, I put him to sleep in April, but Mowgli was my cat. And Raksha was the other one. And yeah, like Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan, there's all the stories that stay with me. And I'm sure a lot of people, exactly where you were when you heard the story for the first time, who was telling it to you. All these things are affecting your hormones. And what stories do is they really connect to your hormones. So your serotonin, your dopamine, and oxytocin is the one that is like when you are hugged, that is the hormone that comes out, so it's almost like a story is giving you a good hug, and that kind of feeling, all these good feelings that come out of there. But at the same time, if you're telling stories or listening to stories that are not so nice, you have other hormones that come out, like adrenaline, like cortisol, your stress levels go through the roof. And honestly, this is what the news, they thrive on this, right? Because that's your ratings. This is all your drama. And the unfortunate thing is that drama gives you more ratings. And so people don't really tell you like the good feeling stories. They always tell you like, here are all these people who died over there. There's a war over here. Let's just blow it up with like viewer discretion advised and show you all these horrible photos, because it literally makes you feel physiologically uncomfortable. But then some part of you, because now your other hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are fired, you kind of keep wanting to watch that. And people get into this really, really like state of like depression and apathy and eco-anxiety because it's just so much, So we need to start kind of putting stories into the world where we want to kind of focus on all these good feelings, and show people that, yes, we have so much more to look forward to if we start to look at a community thing, a community level, reciprocity, living with people, living with the environment, being a part of nature. And so also part of the Eco chapter, we're writing books as part of the Better Future Narratives project. We've published the first book in October. It's called Dreams of Unwritten Futures. And it's written by 5 of us around the world. So me in Singapore, we have South America, South Africa, Argentina, Spain, UK, and New Zealand. And
Okay.
so, yeah, we're looking forward to putting more books into the world.
And can you repeat that title again?
The title, Dreams of Unwritten Futures.
The Dreams of Unwritten Futures. And before I turn back to Rennie, can you think of an example of how telling a story has a greater resonance than just saying it as it is?
Yeah, I mean, like, it goes back to like all the nursery rhymes of all time, like all these stories that you heard as kids, they stick with you now because something has connected with your brain and you can picture that because your hormones have been activated, and you have these good feelings or bad feelings, and you remember those stories. Even if it's like a horror movie that you watch for the first time when you're sitting at home at night as a kid, with a torchlight reading a horror story, you remember that. You remember exactly what happened and why you were so freaked out afterwards.
Okay. All right. Can we go back to the rainforest? And Rennie, you're telling me, so we should look after the rainforest because it's the right thing to do. We should care about, well, forget about our children 7 generations away. Maybe we ought to care about our children 1 or 2 generations away, for that matter. But I think also you you feel that it is actually possible to generate a revenue from the rainforest in a way that makes the whole thing sustainable. I mean, the sustainable tourism is one area, of course, and I think you've got a sustainable tourism project that you're working on. But also there are products that were created in the rainforest. Can you expand a little bit about that?
There's so many products coming from a rainforest, which have much greater value than any commodity coming from a plantation. And I can say that very loudly because we recently proved that. And that is, for example, with coffee. So what we do is we help farmers transition their plantations back to rainforest. That goes together like with a lot of education because they might be very well in knowing how to produce, for example, Arabica or Robusta. Mainly it's Robusta because that can capture a lot of sun, which Arabica really needs shade. But to get a good product, you need biodiversity. That means you need nature. You need nature to do the job. So when we start this transition, I love coffee because in the end, I can tell you what the result is, which is very upfront. So we start with planting, for example, avocados next to it, which makes coffee produce 50 to 100% more harvest. Then we start planting, for example, indigo. Indigo is a medicinal plant from Indonesia. It's used for traditional medicine there. And it's also a natural coloring that is used for the batik fabric. But at the same time, the roots of the indigo give off a little chemical reaction that is a natural repellent against pests. So my coffee is naturally protected by its biodiversity surrounding it. And recently we had a customer from the UK wanting to buy our coffee just because of the story, because like we restore rainforests, which is very, very nice. And the storytelling of that, Mala can tell all about it. It's very important to tell the story about the farmers themselves because they are actually doing the work. So we got the coffee for the story to them and they put it into the lab and they tested it on the quality. And they came back to us telling us, like, we knew we had a good product because it's 100% natural. There's no chemicals used. It's biodiverse. And this specific rainforest is about to 40% back to traditional rainforest. So we're not even halfway. And the results came back that the coffee scored 86, which is premium specialty coffee. Bringing that news to the farmer as well, it made the farmers so proud and seeing the results of actually the hard work that they put in. And I think that's what sometimes we're missing in the Western world. We drifted so far away from those natural ecosystems that we don't really understand them anymore. And we're just focusing on quantity instead of quality. While the quality makes us enjoy it more and makes it contain more nutrition as well. So there's like this value in forests. And that also goes back to that they are actually indeed thinking like 7 generations ahead, which was new to me as a neuroscientist. So I really love that fact from Mala. Our brain, like in a Western world, we know that it's about able to make decisions 3 to 6 months ahead. We are not conscious about that. While in a rainforest, tribes they have the capability, they have the wiring in the brain to think 6 years ahead. So when they, for example, see a tree and they say like, oh, it's a great harvest this year. So it's probably gonna be at the end of its production in about 5 years. They already plant the seedling. While we as Westerns would say, oh, it has a great harvest. I can earn a lot of money out of that. And then we'll see next year. I'm gonna crossbreed or I'm gonna feed it more fertilizer to get a better product. Because we literally, even though we think we can, neuroscience proves that we don't have the capability to think long term like they can. And that is basically because of like all the nice hormones that Mala was talking about that we want. because they get replaced with cortisol in our brain from birth, just because of our environments. And we need those safety hormones to actually consider and being able to think that long term. But yeah, and then a rainforest, and even what you eat, like the quality that our farmers produce, you can taste it, but you can taste the labor that is put into it, and that labor is being done with a lot of love and respect for the forest. And that's something you can literally see in the product. So yeah, there is an economic benefit as well.
Okay, and you've got a retreat that you're doing in the autumn, I believe, and that's in the rainforest as well. So that would be sustainable tourism.
Yeah. I always find tourism a really difficult topic to talk about, to be really honest, because you can see like it's a blessing and a curse at the same time. And I think people should definitely see nice places and go into the forest if they can, but not without getting proper instructions about how to live in harmony with that environment. Because if we're not aware of walking there and we just walk there unconsciously, it's not just harmful for you as a human, but it's way more harmful for the ecosystem. Yeah, but yeah, we do take people to the rainforest, and we do that. They're like guided, so you are aware of that. And then we can actually measure your brain getting more in balance with your biological wiring. And that's very cool. We can prove that by doing stress tests, we do cortisol tests. So yeah, and we can prove that your brain goes back to a more natural state, which makes you capable of making more long-term and strategic decisions.
Okay, fascinating. So now I was reading an article in the Guardian that the Amazon rainforest is now emitting more CO2 than it absorbs. The Amazon rainforest is now emitting more carbon dioxide than it is able to absorb, scientists have confirmed for the first time, says The Guardian. The emissions amount to 1 billion tonnes of carbon dioxide a year, according to a study. The giant forest had previously been a carbon sink, absorbing the emissions and driving the climate crisis, but now it is causing an acceleration, researchers saying, which is a tad depressing, to be honest. But that's not. That doesn't mean to say it's always like that. By the way, thank you for your comment, Bell. I beg your pardon. I agree that tourism is a blessing and a curse at the same time. So, Rennie, I understand that providing a forest is largely intact and it's managed properly, then it can still be an important part of sucking up carbon dioxide. Any thoughts about that?
It's the source of processing carbon dioxide. The sound went out, didn't it?
He disappeared.
So I'm still here.
Oh.
I thought I would leave you. I thought I'd leave you two on your own on the screen for a few minutes.
Stick with us. It's good company.
Oh dear. Wouldn't want you to get lonely.
Yeah. So yeah, no, a forest. We all know that's what a forest does. It turns carbon dioxide into beautiful products. That's what a forest does. It brings us fruit, and maybe most people these days don't realize this, but the apple you're eating or the fruit that you're having for your breakfast, it's 80% carbon dioxide. So the forest actually, it doesn't just capture and stores carbon dioxide, because that's what we're talking about, right? We're all talking about like carbon credits, like we have to capture carbon. We should not capture carbon. We should have nature turn it into something that's useful for us, the way ecosystems are meant to be. So have it produce our fruits, have it produce our vegetables, have it produce our medicinal plants, have it produce our creative materials like natural coloring. Like there's so much to be found that all needs carbon dioxide to produce something. But when you produce it, it's turned into something like, because it needs us to breathe out the carbon dioxide, basically. That's the whole ecosystem. We're part of that. We breathe it out, and our breeding actually makes the forest capable of turning it into fruit, and then we'll eat it again. And that's how the ecosystem works. But capturing it doesn't do anything. It just stores it until it's released back in the air again, and then that's it. We do the whole cycle again. So you want an intact ecosystem to turn it into something beautiful that we can actually use.
Okay, so you told me you're not a big fan of carbon credits. Does that play into what you just said then?
Yes, because carbon credits are focused on capturing carbon. And what they also forget is they are paying farmers to leave the forest untouched. But an untouched forest is not productive. You need to harvest the banana in time. If you don't harvest the banana, it's going to emit carbon dioxide. It's meant to create bananas for us to eat. So we can be part of that ecosystem. So carbon credits, I think initially it was meant to be a good thing. I don't think it was meant to do harm, and it's not really doing harm as well. But it's such a short-term thinking of looking at a problem and looking at a short-term problem, while nature, it's a big long-term ecosystem. You can't have a short-term solution for a long-term problem. And creating value and economic value from an ecosystem, that's what you actually want to do, because who doesn't want to have this specialty coffee to drink if you love coffee in the morning? Who doesn't want to have the papaya for breakfast if you love papaya? So why would you leave the forest untouched and just pay farmers to not use it? Because that's basically what we're doing.
Okay. Do you have anything to add to that, Marla?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of these things, like what Renee said, are short-term solutions. I mean, ultimately, what we should be doing is to be fixing the problems at the root, right? If we stopped putting out so much carbon emissions into the world, we don't have to sit there and try and find ways to put them underground, which nobody knows what's going to happen. It could explode. You know, all we're trying to do is to find a short-term solution in order to keep business as usual and keep it going. But we live in a finite world with finite resources and finite everything. Like, finding these solutions is almost like putting a band-aid on a bigger problem, and we're using technology to find these band-aids rather than looking at root cause, which then goes back to language and how we're looking at perceptions and behaviors and things like that. It's just to stop using so much. And now with the recent war, I mean, we're putting out billions of tons of carbon dioxide into the world.
We certainly are. Any of you got any comments on this comment by Bell? I feel a little uncomfortable about talking about the rainforest solely as a source of products. How can we balance that reality against an understanding of the rainforest and how animals and plants are a living whole in its own right, regardless of the services it provides to humans? Any thoughts about that?
I love that comment.
Yeah. I mean, this goes back to language, right? I mean, the fact that we say things like products, we say these are resources, we say these are ecosystem services, it all just means that we as humans, we are allowed to just take everything, because it puts us as a place on a pedestal. At the end of the day, it's this anthropomorphic kind of, we are better and therefore we can take whatever we want. And I feel like it's a huge way of looking at things like inanimate objects again, rather than saying that these are gifts, you know, that we are allowed to have and to partake of and to share. It makes it all very, very different when you talk about it as this. Yes, the forest gives us presents for free, but we put a commodity on it, we put a price on it, and then we just exploit it because we're like, oh, this is a thing, we deserve it, you know, like totally entitled.
I totally agree. And I also think that these days, it's unfortunately how humanity, the majority of humanity thinks, and how you can also protect the forest by creating value for it. Otherwise, they will just chop it down. But, and I love that Belle thinks like this, because I think we need more people that think like that. Because we are part of that ecosystem, and that's the whole core truth. We are part of it. Just as animals, like, we're not privileged, and nature was there long before us, and it will be there long after us. And we just have the privilege living in that and depending on it.
Okay, fair comment.
It's this scary narrative that people keep saying that we have to save the planet, but the planet was here long before us, and it will be. And we are like parasites, right? That we're just taking everything as we please.
It's not really the planet we have. Yeah, it's not really the planet we have to save, is it? It's that aspect
That
of the
was
planet that keeps us going, I think, really.
Yes.
The planet will manage when we're gone. The issue is, will it get a bit fed up with us and start, there's that book, Gaia, James Lovelock, I think the author's name is, that suggests that Earth is like a living organism, and that living organisms tend to deal with, if there's a parasite, they try and deal with that parasite. And he argues that the parasite that is currently infecting the Earth is called human beings. So anyhow, so
That's amazing, Michael, actually, because I'm publishing, together with Lizzie, we're publishing an article with the University of New Zealand about temporal lines, like a temporal alignment, which means different lifelines. And the basic research study we did is seeing the Earth as a living being.
Right, okay. So, so Marla, I was telling you, I was apologising to you earlier recently because I kept calling you Maria. And that's because I'm mildly dyslexic and I just couldn't see the L. All I could see was an I. And so Nadia, I was talking to Nadia earlier and he asked me not to call him Nadia. So so I'm trying my best not to do that. But thank you for your comment, Nadia.
But Nadia, I'm sure it happens to you every day, because every day I get called Maria Lisa since I was a kid. So I feel your pain.
Anyhow, so tipping points. Tipping points and climate change affecting the rainforests. Have you got any thoughts about that?
Do you want to go, Renee?
Like what kind of tipping points do you want?
Well, can you see, as climate change gets worse, you can see an acceleration. So an example of that tipping point might be what I was referring to earlier about the Amazon losing its effectiveness as a carbon sink. Another example of a tipping point is the diminishing of AMOC, which is the current that the Gulf Stream comes from, which could ultimately lead to colder temperatures in Western Europe, in Britain certainly, and maybe in the Netherlands where you come from, Rennie. So those would be tipping points. Are you aware of any effect any negative effect that climate change is having on the rainforests, which could in turn affect the impact that it is having upon the climate?
There's so many, but I do prefer to look at that the other way, because there's also a lot of things that we do that influences it positively. And I think next generations, like generations that are now rising up, they are way more aware of what's going on, and I love that. And I hope that the work that Mala, Lisa, and I, for example, are doing in telling the stories, creating these things, bringing the knowledge back, will be a stepping stone for those generations to bring it further. So I believe in the power of ecosystems in a whole, and that also means the next generation stepping up to that. And yes, indeed, respect the ecosystem, but also understand it. Because, for example, what you said about the Amazon, a large amount of people don't realize that we are planting trees now in the desert, but actually the Sahara sand that is literally, it's flowing to the Amazon, which creates nutrients in the soil of the Amazon. So even planting ecosystems, making them greener while they are not supposed to be green, it's just we are interfering with ecosystems instead of listening to them. So I just want to, not really a tipping point, but just like a key takeaway for me would be listen to the ecosystem and try to understand it rather than try to improve it.
Well, one of the issues, if they were to try and green the Sahara, make the Sahara a forest like it was thousands of years ago, is that actually the dust from the Sahara plays a key role in supporting the rainforests in Brazil. So actually, if we were to do that, people would say, you cover the Sahara Desert with solar panels, for example. Well, if you were to do that, that would probably have a negative impact upon the Amazon rainforest. So these things, there's always a very confusing interaction of cause and effect here. A LinkedIn user, now I don't know why your name hasn't come up. It's a mystery to me why some people up here weep their name and some people are not. So apologies for not knowing who you are. I could check LinkedIn, but I don't do that when I'm broadcasting live. It will cause all sorts of problems. So, but what practical advice would you give to companies that want to communicate sustainability authentically without sounding performative or greenwashing? Any thoughts about that?
Can I get this?
Yes, please.
Yeah, and I really because this is basically what we do. I'm a banker. I've developed propositions regarding the ESG regulation. And I think what broke my heart the most was helping companies in getting aligned with their ESG regulations while drifting so far away from the actual problem. It's just, it's a lot of costs that they put into that to make it right. While the actual sources, there's so many middlemen that for a lot of corporates, they don't know where to find the real answers or the real solutions. So what I would say is indeed, call Marla-Lisa if you want to have a great story and get your story across, or call me if you actually want to restore ecosystems and get the impact reporting as a thank you, because we will show the results of what your donation can do. And there will be results in how much heavy metals did we get out of the soil with your donations, how many native species did we plant back, how many commodities could we plant for farmers, how many income does that create. Like, we give actual impact data back, not because we're selling it, but we want to thank you for contributing to making that ecosystem more intact again. And I think if it's me or one of my, I don't have competitors, I only have colleagues. So if it's one of my colleagues, but find the people that are sitting here with us today, but also spend that time in the rainforest. Because in 1 month, I'll be back in the rainforest. I'll be remote. People cannot call me because I won't have any reception, because I'm sitting there with the farmers. And that is more cost efficient for once, but also you get the real stories, because that's where you get a Marla that actually has been there. She knows what to tell and how the real story is. She knows the names of the farmers. And that's also what we do. Like, storytelling is, I think, the most important thing of the work that we do. Tell the story of the actual work that we're doing.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm guessing that Renee is going to take me to the forest to write your stories for you, because yes.
No, I think you'll find she's taking me first.
Totally
you can get in the queue behind me for that one.
I just wanted to go back to what we were talking about before with the geoengineering, and then I'll get to the sustainability greenwashing. The scary thing about geoengineering, I mean, the last year they wanted to dim the sun, because they said that was a better way, rather than stopping pollution, they would just dim the sun. There's so many things that we don't understand, and how things are connected and how everything is interconnected. Like you said, Michael and Renee, like the soil from the Sahara, the sand from the Sahara actually fertilizes the Amazon. And because it rains so much, all that nutrients are depleted so often that needs to happen. And we didn't know that until very recently. And the thing is, we're also looking at, like you said, Renee, is the world is a living system. And if we think of our bodies, if we move up just a few 0.5 degrees, we're in a fever, and anything more than that, we're in the hospital. And now we're looking at keeping the planet at 1.5 degrees Celsius. It's the same as us having a fever. That's a lot. And we've already surpassed that, and now we're going to 2. They're planning for 3 or 4. That's almost like comatose. You're going to be in a coma if you were human. And that's the kind of way that we should be looking at the planet. There are so many things that are connected in our body. The fact that we have an entire ecosystem in our guts, in our mouths, in our eyes, we have parasites and bugs and bacteria everywhere. It's the same. And I think we should start to think of the planet as that. We cannot just say, oh, this is the answer because it is written in a science journal by one school. It's so many things that we just don't understand. And us playing God is terrifying because we don't know what we're doing.
It certainly is. I mean, strictly speaking, the lowest temperature there is -273, I believe. So when, in percentage terms, if you look at -273 to +30 or whatever, that's 300 degrees. And we all know an increase in temperature of a couple of degrees could be catastrophic. But in percentage terms, that's tiny. And this reminds me, I wanted to tell you about last night. So Nadia is saying how the UK has recorded its hottest day ever in May. In fact, I think we've 2 days in a row. not a tiny increment, but something like a whole 2 degrees, and that's scary. And, you know, I don't want to burn with you guys with my problems, but I couldn't get to sleep last night. I couldn't get to sleep last night because it was so hot. And I looked at my phone, and the first thing I looked at was a post from Lomberg, I think his name is, saying, "Oh, we don't need to worry about global warming because yes, it will kill people, but people die from it being too cold, so it would cancel each other out." And that really wound me up. I was really cross about that. And then next thing I looked at on my phone was Tony Blair saying the UK needs to ditch its net zero targets. So it really didn't help me getting to sleep. And as Nadia says, fragile Earth. And I think that's absolutely right. Maybe in addition to a spell in the rainforest, maybe another thing that might make a difference to people. They say that astronauts have been up in space and they've looked down on Earth and they looked at the thin atmosphere. It completely changes their perspective on things. Anyhow, guys, what I thought I would do is give you each 45 seconds if you need it to sum up. What are the key takeaways from this discussion that you would like people to take away with you? Who wants to go first on that one? I don't mind.
Maybe I can go first because I really have to go. I'm actually in Portugal at the World Summit.
You go first. Back to your summit, Ren.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, but people are waiting for me.
No, that's fine. You're in Porto. You need to get back to Porto and enjoy some port.
Well, I still have the summit to attend, so. But I think the key takeaway: do not take anything for granted, and be aware that you're part of the ecosystem, and behave like that. That for me would be the main key takeaway, and also as a leader, set the example, because actually nature can literally heal your brain, and we can prove that by science. And I think that's something very, very, very valuable. Like, do retreats. Like, we do one in the rainforest where we measure you. Be welcome, but find whatever suits you as a person, but do it. Go out there, go experience it, learn from it, and immerse yourself in it, because it's in the end a biological source, and it will help you reach your goals in whatever way you want to accomplish them.
Okay, thank you, Rennie. You are dismissed. You may go now.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry.
Enjoy your conference. Maybe we'll get you back on the
Thank
show.
you.
Thank you, Rennie.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Marla, I'll give you the last word, and I don't know whether you've got any comments about this thing from Eric. I can't think of any species destroying their own ecosystems, but I'm sure they'd be extinct if they did.
I have
Marla,
quotes from Jane Goodall and David Attenborough that I think will also answer his question. So the whole idea is that, you know, no other species does this. You try very hard to thrive in your community based on symbiosis, and you find ways to work with other things, like all these tiny little nuances of like the evolutionary thread, how like bees have like evolved to deal with this one flower that they pollinate. You know, they've all evolved to find a way to cooperate with each other, whereas we are just coming here and just destroying everything, which seems counterproductive to life, really. And then David Attenborough also said that, you know, we will never protect something that we don't know, and we don't know it until we experience it. And it's also like not possible for everybody to be able to experience the forest or the rainforest or nature. You know, like me and Renee, like we are super lucky to be constantly in nature. But then I guess for me, it's really the idea of storytelling, you know, who as creatives, as storytellers, as educators, poetry, art, literature, music, we can give that experience as well through words, you know, through education, through podcasts, through speaking songs and things like that. We can give people the experience, because also has been scientifically proven that the exposure to nature words, simple things like flowers and trees and things like that in books, actually really does help connect you back to nature. So I would think, for me especially, because I work so much with language, it's really like surround yourself with nature language, people who talk about nature, even though you cannot be outside or cannot be in jungles. You know, we have nature everywhere. We have trees everywhere. Put a plant in your room. That's enough. You know, start from there.
Marla, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us, and maybe we can get you back on again at some point in the future.
Yeah,
good luck with your book, and But keep in touch, won't you? And thank you very much for watching the show. We're back tomorrow with an update from Brazil.